Just yesterday, I was humming, making Owen's favorite pancakes, when he walked in, phone to his ear, a wild grin on his face. "Mom, it's done," he yelled. Then later that day, he threw me out, said my son got $53 million and I was dead weight. Days later, he was on his knees, begging for my help, and I had a secret. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. My name is Alara, and until a few weeks ago, I thought I knew my son, Owen. He was my whole world, you know? Since his dad passed, it's always just been us. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. My hands still ache sometimes from all those years of scrubbing floors, serving coffee, just trying to give him a better life than I had. Owen, he was smart. Always had his nose in books about computers, coding, all that tech stuff I barely understood. I told him, "Owen, honey, you go for it. Whatever makes you happy, I'll support you." And I did. Every last penny I could scrape together went into his laptop, his online courses, even that tiny office space he rented downtown when he started his startup. I cooked him dinner, cleaned his apartment, cheered him on when things got tough. I was his biggest fan, his rock. My world revolved around him, plain and simple. We lived in this cozy little house, nothing fancy, but it was ours. It had a big, sunny kitchen where I made those pancakes, a little garden out back where I tried to grow tomatoes, and Owen's room, always a bit messy, filled with wires and blinking lights. It felt like home, a safe place. We'd sit on the porch in the evenings, talking about his day, his big dreams. He'd tell me about his app, how it was going to change things, make life easier for people. He had this sparkle in his eyes, a real passion. I believed in him, truly. I remember telling my best friend, Nora, "That boy's going to do big things, Nora. You just watch." She'd just smile and say, "He's lucky to have you, Alara." Then came the day. The day everything shifted. I was in the kitchen, like always, the smell of butter and maple syrup filling the air. Owen burst through the door, his face bright red, a mix of shock and pure joy. "Mom, Mom, you won't believe it," he shouted, waving his phone around like a lunatic. I thought maybe he'd gotten a new job or finally sold his first big client. "What is it, sweetie?" I asked, putting down the spatula, my heart doing a little flutter kick of excitement for him. "It happened, Mom. The acquisition. It went through," he screamed, practically vibrating with excitement. He grabbed me and spun me around. $53 million, Mom. 53 million. My jaw just dropped. 53 million? My mind couldn't even grasp that number. It was so much more than I could ever imagine. "Owen," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. "That's incredible." "Oh, my boy." I hugged him tight, feeling so proud, so happy for him. All those years, all that hard work, it paid off. I imagined us, finally free of worry. Maybe a nice little vacation, a new car for Owen, maybe I could even stop working 2 jobs. Just a little comfort. But something in his eyes, even then, felt different. The sparkle was still there, but it was sharper, colder. Like a switch had flipped. The next few days were a blur of lawyers, fancy suits, and Owen constantly on his phone, talking about investments, advisors, portfolios. He moved out of his messy room and into a huge penthouse downtown. "You're coming with me, right, Mom?" he asked, not really a question, more like an afterthought, as he packed a designer suitcase. "Of course," I said, my voice a little shaky. I was excited, but also a tiny bit scared. This was a whole new world. I packed up my things, mostly just clothes and old photo albums. The house felt empty already. Nora helped me. "He's going to remember everything you did for him, Alara," she said, giving me a squeeze. I hope so. I truly did. The penthouse was stunning, all glass and chrome, looking out over the city. It felt like a hotel, not a home. Owen had bought new furniture, sleek and modern. He even hired a chef. I tried to make myself useful, cooking breakfast sometimes, tidying up. But Owen seemed distant. He was always busy, always on calls, always out with new friends I didn't recognize. He rarely looked at me, really looked at me anymore. One evening, I was sitting alone on the impossibly large sofa, watching the city lights, when Owen walked in. He had a glass of something expensive in his hand. He looked tired, but also annoyed. "Mom," he started, his voice flat, "we need to talk." My stomach clenched. "What is it, honey?" "Look," he said, taking a sip, "things are different now. My life, it's elevated. I need to focus on my future, my network." He paused, and I could feel the coldness radiating off him. "And, well, you're not really fitting in." My breath hitched. "What do you mean, Owen?" My voice was barely a whisper. He sighed, a loud, exasperated sound. "I mean, Mom, this isn't your world. You don't understand it. And frankly, you're becoming a liability." He wouldn't even meet my eyes. "I've bought you a nice little apartment across town. It's paid for forever. You'll be comfortable. But you can't live here anymore." My vision blurred. You're kicking me out?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was my son, my Owen, the boy I raised, the one I sacrificed everything for. "It's not kicking you out, Mom. It's an adjustment," he said, as if it was perfectly logical. "You have your own space now. You can visit sometimes, of course. But this," he gestured around the luxurious living room, "this is for my new life." The humiliation hit me like a physical blow. It was worse than any pain I'd ever felt. My own son. He got $53 million and threw me out. My heart felt like it was crumbling into a million pieces. I just stood there, speechless, tears streaming down my face. He didn't even flinch. He just looked at me impatiently, like I was holding him up. "I've already had a car arranged to take you there in the morning," he added, his voice devoid of any warmth. "Just pack your things." I stumbled to my room, the expensive carpets feeling like a thorny path beneath my feet. I could hear him on the phone, laughing, a hollow sound that echoed in the vast, empty penthouse. I couldn't breathe. I just kept thinking, my son got $53 million and threw me out. It was a nightmare. A real, living nightmare. I lay on the bed, just staring at the ceiling, trying to comprehend how my world had just imploded. How the boy I loved more than life itself could be so cruel. The sun rose the next morning, but for me, it felt like the darkest night. The apartment Owen got me was nice, I guess. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, overlooking a busy street. But it wasn't home. It was just a place. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, let alone in this new, lonely space. For days, I barely moved from the sofa. Nora came over, bless her heart. She held my hand, let me cry, and didn't try to offer any empty platitudes. "He's a fool, Alara," she said, her voice tight with anger. "A real fool. After everything you did." "I don't understand, Nora," I choked out, wiping my eyes. "How could he? How could Owen be so cold?" "Money changes people, honey," she said, shaking her head. "Sometimes for the worse. He's probably surrounded by leeches, telling him he's a genius, that he doesn't need anyone." Her words resonated, but it didn't lessen the sting. It was the humiliation, you see. Not just being kicked out, but the way he did it. Like I was a discarded piece of furniture, easily replaced. My pride, my love, my very existence, all thrown aside for his new life. A deep, cold anger began to simmer beneath my heartbreak. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about respect. About dignity. A few days later, while trying to distract myself, I was going through some old boxes, just bits and pieces from my dad's house. My dad, bless his soul, he was always a thoughtful man. Very precise. He'd passed away years ago, leaving me a small inheritance, but mostly just memories. Tucked away in a dusty old shoebox, beneath a stack of his old letters, I found an envelope. It was thick, legal-looking. My name was on it, along with Owen's. "Last will and testament. Trust details," it read. My heart gave a little thump. I remembered my dad talking about setting something up for Owen, his only grandchild, but I honestly thought it was just a small savings bond, something for his college fund. I never followed up. Life was too busy, too hard. I pulled out the documents. My hands shook a little as I started to read. It wasn't just a simple savings bond. My dad, a wise old bird, had set up a substantial trust. Not the $53 million, mind you. That was Owen's money. This was different. This was for Owen's future, a considerable sum from my dad's old investments, maturing when Owen turned 25. But here was the kicker. A clause, written in my dad's careful hand, stated that I was named as the primary trustee. And if Owen demonstrated reckless financial behavior or disregard for filial responsibility, I, as trustee, had full authority to manage, even control, the distribution of the trust's assets, and even influence other significant financial matters related to Owen's welfare until I deemed him responsible. There was a specific mention of his overall financial stability and emotional maturity. It was a safeguard. For Owen. And, as I now realized, for me. My breath caught. Wait, what? I said out loud. This wasn't about his $53 million money, but it was a significant amount. And the clause about disregard for filial responsibility, that hit me hard. It was like my dad, even from the grave, knew Owen might need some guidance, some boundaries. And he had given me the power to provide it. The legal terms felt heavy, but the meaning was crystal clear. My dad had given me a weapon. A very powerful legal weapon. I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Purpose. This wasn't just about my dad's trust. It was about standing up for myself, for what was right. It was about teaching Owen a lesson he desperately needed to learn. I wasn't just a Laura, the heartbroken mother. I was a Laura, the trustee. I called Elias, a lawyer I knew from my old job. He used to come into the coffee shop I worked at. He was a kind, quiet man. I explained everything carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. He listened patiently. Elara, he said, his voice calm, this is very significant. Your father was prescient. This trust, and specifically your role as trustee, gives you a great deal of power, especially with that clause. It's ironclad. Can it help me? I asked, my heart hammering. Not just with his trust, but to make Owen see what he's done? Elias nodded. It creates leverage. If his money is tied up in other investments, and he's not careful, any significant financial setback could easily bring him to you. And if he comes, you hold the legal authority, not just over this trust, but potentially to influence his overall financial well-being based on the conditions. He explained that the trust documents even mention something about using the trust to support a dependent, in this case, me, if Owen failed to provide for my welfare. My dad had thought of everything. He had laid a safety net and a hidden power play. Over the next few weeks, I spent hours with Elias. He helped me understand the legalities, how to properly exercise my authority. We gathered all the necessary documents, filed the paperwork. It was slow, tedious work, but with every step, I felt stronger. I wasn't just waiting for Owen to fail, I was preparing. I was turning my humiliation into a calculated strategy for justice. Meanwhile, news about Owen's extravagant spending started trickling back to me through Nora, who had friends in all corners of the city. He'd bought a luxury yacht, a fleet of sports cars, invested in some dubious tech ventures that quickly flopped. He was living larger than life, throwing wild parties. He's burning through that money, Elara, Nora warned, concern etched on her face. He's got no head for it. I listened, a strange mix of sadness and grim satisfaction in my heart. Sadness for the boy who was losing his way, satisfaction because my father's foresight and my own coming revenge might just save him from himself. I knew it was coming. The phone call. The desperate plea. The turning point. I just had to be ready. And I was. I was practicing my calm, even voice. I was studying the trust documents until I knew them by heart. I was no longer the heartbroken mom. I was the one holding the cards. I was prepared for him to come begging. The call came on a Tuesday. I was watering the sad little plant on my windowsill, trying to bring some life back into it, when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, but my gut told me. I took a deep breath. Hello, I said, my voice steady, even. Mom? Is that you, Mom? Owen's voice. It was thin, reedy, completely unlike the confident, booming voice I'd heard recently. He sounded scared. My heart gave a little pang, despite everything. He was my son, after all. Yes, Owen. It's me. Mom, I need your help, he stammered. It's all gone wrong. Gone wrong with what, Owen? I asked, keeping my tone neutral, professional almost. I imagined Elias standing right next to me, reminding me to stay calm. He let out a shaky breath. The investments, Mom. That company I put a chunk into, the crypto startup? It was a scam. And then the yacht, the cars. I took out a loan against some of the assets for a new venture, and now they're calling in the debt. I'm almost out of liquid cash, and I'm facing lawsuits from some of my partners. Mom, I'm going to lose everything. His voice cracked. Everything. Is that right, Owen? I said, letting a sliver of my old kindness creep in, just enough to keep him talking. I'm sorry to hear that. What exactly do you need my help with? Money, Mom. I need a loan. You always said you'd help me, that you'd be there for me, he pleaded, his voice rising in desperation. Please, Mom, I'm desperate. They're threatening to freeze my accounts, to take the penthouse, everything. Owen, I said, a slight pause, letting the silence hang. You threw me out, remember? Told me I was a liability. Said this wasn't my world. He went quiet for a moment. I could almost hear him thinking, scrambling. Mom, I was wrong. I was a fool, a complete idiot. I didn't know what I was saying. I was caught up in it all, the money, the fast life. Please, Mom, just let me explain. Can we meet? Please. All right, Owen, I finally said. Come to my apartment. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And come alone. The next morning, I dressed carefully. Not in my old work clothes, but something smart, clean, professional. I laid the thick trust documents, neatly bound, on my small kitchen table. Elias had advised me on exactly what to say, what to hold back. This was it. The moment I had been preparing for. Owen arrived promptly at 10, looking haggard, his usually impeccable hair a mess. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a scared child, not the arrogant millionaire who had thrown me out. Mom, he said, rushing towards me, thank you for seeing me. He tried to hug me, but I stepped back gently. Have a seat, Owen, I said, gesturing to the chair opposite mine at the table. He sat, his eyes darting around the modest apartment, a stark contrast to his penthouse. Mom, I'm so sorry, he started, his voice thick with emotion. I made a terrible mistake. I realize now how much you mean to me, everything you've done. I was selfish, ungrateful. I truly am sorry for how I treated you. I let him talk, watching his face. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to reach out, to comfort him. But the stronger part, the part that remembered the humiliation, held firm. I appreciate your apology, Owen, I said, my voice still even. But actions have consequences. And you didn't just hurt me, you disregarded everything I taught you about responsibility, about family. Then, I pushed the documents across the table. His eyes widened as he saw the title, Trust Documents for Owen Elias Reed. He looked up at me confused. What's this, Mom? Is this money from Grandpa? Yes, Owen. Your grandfather set this up for you years ago, I explained. But more importantly, he named me as the primary trustee. And, as you'll see in Article 3, subsection B, I pointed to a specific paragraph. If you demonstrated reckless financial behavior or disregard for filial responsibility, I, as trustee, have full authority to manage, even control, the distribution of these assets and influence other significant financial matters related to your welfare until I deem you responsible. He stared at the words, then back at me, his face paling. Wait, what? You have full authority. He looked utterly shocked, his mouth slightly open. The words of the title, I walked in holding the trust documents that gave me full authority over his fortune, felt so real in that moment. The irony was almost unbearable. He got $53 million and threw me out, and now I had power over his future. That's right, Owen, I confirmed, picking up my copy of the documents. And given your current situation and how you treated me, I believe I have ample grounds to exercise that authority. I looked him straight in the eye. I will help you. But it will be on my terms. I will take over the management of your remaining assets, the trust, and work with Elias to untangle your financial mess. You will live here with me for now. No more extravagant spending. No more reckless decisions. You will learn the value of money, of hard work, and of family. And you will help me choose what to do with the substantial funds from Grandpa's trust for good, meaningful purposes. He looked utterly defeated, but also, slowly, a flicker of something new appeared in his eyes, relief. He realized I wasn't just taking over, I was saving him. "Mom," he whispered, I understand. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. It wasn't easy. The next few months were filled with long meetings with Elias, cutting through Owen's financial mess, selling off the unnecessary luxuries. Owen moved back in, chastened and quieter. He started helping me around the apartment, cooking sometimes, really seeing me again. We talked, truly talked, for the first time in years. He realized his friends were fair weather, his investments foolish. He had to face the reality of his mistakes, and it was a painful but necessary process. He started volunteering, putting his tech skills to use for a local charity, developing an app to help people experiencing homelessness. The sparkle came back to his eyes, but this time, it was a warm, genuine light. I didn't take all his money, but I made sure he learned his lesson hard. I've set up a foundation with a portion of my dad's trust, and Owen, now wiser, is on the board. He's learning to manage money, to invest responsibly, to give back. And our relationship? It's slowly, tentatively healing. He sees me now not as a liability, but as his anchor. And I see him not just as the son who hurt me, but as the boy who, with a firm hand and a lot of love, found his way back. That trust, those documents, they didn't just give me authority over his fortune, they gave us the second chance. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but also the most necessary. You know, the most impactful moment was not when he begged for help, but when he genuinely apologized, without prompting, after living with me and seeing the truth. That's when I knew he was truly changing.